Welcome.
Okay, thanks.
So, like I said, we're going to have trends and challenges managing your food safety system today. It should be a lot of fun. And presenting is going to be Caleb Lawrence Akala. Caleb is our lead auditor, or one of them, for food and feed with SGS, based out of Mississauga, Canada. And I'm the regional sales manager for food in North America, one of the many of us that are out here to help you with SGS. Our contact information will be on the last slide if anybody wants. So SGS in brief, I'll give you a couple of minutes spiel on us. We are the #1 leader in the certification business. We've exceeded 97,000 worldwide employees, 2,650 offices. Thanks to COVID, we actually reduced the amount of offices, but increased the amount of employees. It made us a lot more able and agile to do the right thing for you all out there. We're in 11 global industries, been around since 1878. Been on the stock exchange since 1981. So basically it puts us at about 145 years in business, the oldest and the largest. So we welcome you all joining us. So we have a few solutions that we do to the value chain, and we're here to help you all along the way. We do the primary production, soil, seed, animal welfare, those kinds of certifications and services. We also do transportation, logistics, trade, processors, manufacturers, suppliers, all the way through the retail and food service. So in theory, we're basically farm to fork. We're going to help you through the whole process as you go along with the programs. The SGS difference, well, our quality of service is out there, our industry expertise, and the global network. So we have the reach to be your end-to-end partner and your experts throughout the industries here. So that's why you should count on us to help you all out. I see Caleb shaking his head, so I guess he wants to pick up on the agenda. Caleb, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you, Scott. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's presentation. We're just going to talk about trends and challenges and also managing your food safety program. And I know this is of special interest to many of us who are working in the food industry because these times. There's a song, I guess, somewhere the times are changing. I don't know if you would remember that, but yeah, very well we know that and how this has the food industry has been impacted by a lot of changes in the last 5 years, and we're just going to talk about that briefly today. Hopefully, we can put them all together in the 1 hour that we have. So. From the introduction, of course, we're going to talk about food industry trends and the challenges that it presents to us. And at the end of the presentation, we're going to talk about how do we manage food safety during these times. Next slide, please, sir. All right. So I've been, and I'm probably going to age myself here. I've been an auditor for 20 something years, 23 years to be exact. 22 years. I first came across the phrase farm to fork as a young auditor back in 2000. Some 20 years ago, the idea of food safety being systematically controlled from primary production, at the farm level to consumption seemed like a dream or wishful thinking. Considering that many of the different aspects of the food chain that needed attention didn't really get that idea of food safety being the responsibility of the entire food chain. I know even within food, the realm of food manufacturing then, HACCP wasn't as common yet. Even in the U.S., food safety HACCP as a regulation was still young. It was in 2000. Seafood HACCP was 5 years old as a regulation. Meat and poultry was 4 years old as a regulation, and juice was not going to be regulated until 1 year from 2000. So it wasn't really that common yet as a requirement of regulation, but things drastically changed once U.S. put that into regulation. Markets providing products into the U.S. and even markets, food manufacturers in the respective markets also started requiring HACCP implementation. And of course, on the SGS side, that became a big business in terms of HACCP certification. I remember going back and forth from the Philippines to Saudi Arabia 2 or 3 times a year between 2000 to 2003, just because the king, the Saudi king, made an order for food manufacturers to be HACCP certified, and they're coming from having no regulations to all of a sudden having a regulation that requires for them to be HACCP compliant in the next 3 years. And so you can see the urgency of how the market responded to a something that was not there the day before the declaration was made. So and so it became an urgent need at that point, and so the market responds to it. Having been having been an auditor, like I said, for so long, and doing HACCP audits and GFSI audits in many different places in Asia, in the Middle East, and now here in the U.S. and Canada, I've seen how the global food industry has moved, and it moved and getting to that point where indeed a farm to fork concept of food safety management has been reached, and it's now not out of the ordinary. If you look at the GFSI standards for FSSC, BRC, and SQF, you can now see that all of these standards have specific food safety requirements in whichever link of the food chain your business is, whether you are a manufacturer, whether you are a ship, storage, and distribution. Even when if you're making animal feed, there are now safe product safety standards that are made by these organizations to in order for you to better manage your food safety program. And of course, if you have worked in the food industry, and you would have observed how dynamic this industry is and how fast it can go through changes. And as we all know, that no food business is an island. Yeah, you are a part of a larger chain of businesses that comprise the food supply chain, and the changes to any of these links can impact you as well. And as Darwin once said, it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It is the one that is most adaptive to change. And so it's important for any business to understand that the changes to its environment, quote unquote, to meet these challenges and adapt to it in order for us to thrive and survive. Next slide, please, sir. Okay, so today we're going to talk about some of the recent trends or changes and challenges that largely affect those of us in the food industry. These are not going to be exactly statistical trends, but these are some of that we in SGS have observed to be so common or prevalent in our market here in the US and Canada. This presentation will by no means be an exhaustive list of trends and challenges, and some of these might not be the same as per your experience in your respective markets. I noticed that there are those of you are attending from the Philippines or Vietnam, and some of them from outside the North America. So this might be different from your perspective. I'm just sharing the ones that we do find to be more common or prevalent here with us in the U.S. and Canada. So as you can see in front of you, we're going to talk about the general, o- uh, I guess, overarching factors that cause these changes. It could be this is into in terms of social, economic, and environmental. So, like any other industry, the following factors, these factors, and their interrelation uh, between these factors commonly impact on the food industry at different levels. And these factors can cause food businesses to respond and adjust the way food is farmed, the way food is grown, manufactured, moved, sold, and consumed, and thus impact on managing your food safety. All of these three main factors shape and reshape the single most important driver of change, and that is the consumer. From the said factors, other factors such as legal or political and technological factors can also become relevant, because it's these factors don't really affect the food business in a vacuum. Like they're not independent of each other. Social factors can lead to economic factors, and environmental factors, and vice versa, right? So it's important to note that that there's an interplay between these factors that impact on you as a food manufacturer or a storage and distribution business or a primary producer in the way you make the product or the way you provide your service. Uh, okay. Now I've listed this in terms of social, economic, and environmental. Just keep in mind this is not arranged in the way in terms of their importance, because um, one can be more important than the other in certain markets, right? So this is not really in a particular order the way it's arranged. So first we're going to start with the social factors. So we're just going to talk about two main things here under social factors, and that is the pandemics, the ones that we're having, or the one we had or present, and the one that we might have in the future. And the second one is supply chain transparency, basically on ethical sourcing, humane treatment, healthier options, and whatnot. We're just going to talk about this from an overview and not really in exact detail. I'm just going to talk about it in terms of like how they're impacting on many of our clients in our market. Okay, next slide, please. So so talking about pandemics, right? And I know in your respective areas, COVID has affected you very well. And while even here in the U.S. and Canada, while we have gone back to normal, the threat of future pandemics is still out there. I know there was a statistic somewhere that I read that even in markets like in the EU, many food manufacturers are not as optimistic about being about finally handling or getting a handle of pandemics, that they would know, like we would know what to do the next time around it happens, because like we just wouldn't know what the next pandemic might be like. But even at this point, from what we've had in the last two years of COVID, we still suffer many of the effects of the pandemic, yeah, especially with mandatory isolation of infected people, and this would just right away take people from work, maybe 5 days, or depending on your local regulation, it can be more than that. Um, One of the main impact of the pandemic, as we have learned, is its effect on manpower, both internal and external. Right, as we have experienced, companies have lost people at varying levels of their organization, and even some with significant roles in the food safety program. You can just imagine losing your quality persons, right? Your QC techs, your line monitor people, the people who are supposed to man the critical control points. If when you lose them to COVID, it's pretty hard to replace them. And I've seen many of our clients suffer through that, where they can't replace right away the people who they have trained to specialize on critical food safety control measures. And even when we do find that we can replace them, it takes time to train people up to a level of competency that that you can be confident that they're able to implement their critical control points or their prerequisite programs or their operational prerequisites, when you've newly hired them to do the job. Um, this made it difficult also as well in terms of retaining people, and with COVID, there is a lot of people who would choose not to go to work for fear of infection. There were some that since they were near retirement, they just availed of retirement and stopped working in the food industry. So so that's what COVID, uh, how COVID impacted us on in terms of the competency and level of expertise that we have in our food safety program. and that presents a risk, obviously, when it comes to making sure that your system continually complies with the food safety expectations of whichever standard you're being certified to, whether it's HACCP or GMP or your any of your GFSI schemes. Also, in the onset of COVID, food service businesses like restaurants and fast foods and hotels and resorts lost businesses as well. And so if you're engaged in that business, there's again that threat of the next pandemic might hit you in the same way again. So while demand for food productions went up as consumers preferred to buy and cook their own food, products like canned food, flour, sugar, etc., often were short because of the massive buying of people who prefer to make, to not to eat out, but do their cooking at home. And so manufacturers had to catch up to the demand, to that increased demand, while at the same time suffering from a lack of staff to manage food safety in their processes. Um, another impact of Another impact of COVID was the effect on the supply chain itself. I don't know if you probably suffered that lack of available service providers. Like say here in Canada, because sometimes you would have your metal metal detector technician or your calibrator services, or any other technical services from other provinces wherein there are restrictions of travel, or even if you have them coming from the US or vice versa, and there are government restrictions to travel between these areas, then you run the risk of your calibration expiring, your metal detectors not being calibrated or validated, your pasteurizers not being checked the way in the frequency that they should have been validated. So COVID had an impact on that, on the delivery of the necessary services to maintain a valid system. And so that's another one of those effects that COVID had with many of our facilities here. And so lockdowns and government restrictions, as well as being wary of virus transmission from traveling, did not help us in getting certain services that we needed from within the country or outside of the country. Um, it, in a sense, all of those shortages or delays in services also resulted to an increase in the cost of services, right? And it increased the cost of some of our raw materials and ingredients that we use, and so that affects now the availability and the price of products and services that we normally would offer to our customers and consumers. One other thing about COVID, and I'm sure you would have seen this as well. While there was a decrease in restaurant eating or eating out, there was an increase in home deliveries, and so now there is a question: how safe are home deliveries, right? How aware are people who deliver products from restaurants into your home? How aware are they of basic food safety measures? How aware are they of allergen controls? Right, using the same carriers or containers to deliver products that might have allergens in them versus products that don't have allergens in them. How aware are they that they're supposed to handle this in a specific way as to prevent contamination or cross contamination of allergens, or proper temperature applications for certain products. So that's something that has not been in the past challenge, but then in the advent of COVID, that became more and more an issue with delivered products, right? So again, the risk of product safety, if you're one of those who manufacture the products that get delivered by home deliveries like that, then that's something that you will want to anticipate and mitigate as it applies to your product. Okay. Next one there on supply chain transparency. Back up one slide, Scott. There we go. Thank you. All right. So supply chain transparency. This, I guess, with the information age, um, consumers are more and more aware. They're not just concerned about whether the food is delicious, or it's the kind of quality that they have or the safety that they have. They're now more concerned about social and environmental impact of food manufacturing, storage and distribution, and so they demand for many things other than just quality and safety of the product. Consumers have become more and more aware of these related issues, and they would want us as businesses to respond to requirements of being good, um, social social and environmental, socially compliant or environmentally compliant uh, entities, because this awareness in our consumers creates an impression of our reputation as a company, and typically, especially with the way um, manufacturing uh, is associated with how we treat our people, how we make sure that we comply with environmental laws and regulations of the markets where we sell our products or where we operate. Um, that that resonates with consumers, and they tend to associate with our reputation with whether they want to continue buying from us or not. Um, you would probably have seen that with, say, for example, when you go to Starbucks, for example, and you would find that in their bags, or in their store, they would say that these are ethically sourced coffee, meaning that they're doing what is a socially aware method of making sure that they are, not shortchanging farmers, or that they're also doing environmentally protective procedures and protocols with their farmers to make sure that they're doing sustainable um, methods of sourcing their raw materials. Um, Also, there is an increased demand for authenticity and healthy options, right? They consumers now want, there's a growing market for products that have an authenticity claim. So say, for example, if you say that this your product has basmati rice, for example, um, the consumer wants to make sure that it is authentically basmati rice and it's not just any other rice, and they want evidence of that to be proven on the product that they're buying. Healthy options as well, uh, is one of those where they want non-GMO, no gluten free, and the likes, right? So they want more assurances of that, now more than before, and so they're willing to pay higher prices for that. But at the same time, as a manufacturer, that presents a challenge for you, because this now limits the supply for you. Where can you buy the amount, the supply of those kind of materials or those kind of products? And it, because it's not always that you find it as much, that there's an abundance of that just about anywhere. There's only limited amounts of that that you can access, um, and that being limited also presents the the possibility of fraud, on the side of your suppliers. So in a way, that is the risk of that for us who are engaged in the business of making products that have this authenticity or healthy claims of our product. There's also a demand for lesser environmental impact of food production, especially in food packaging. As you know, they pretty much many of our consumers blame food manufacturers and the food business for food packaging that is found in the environment. Your plastic bottles, your plastic bags, your paper wraps on your burgers and all of that, right? So often the case it is the food companies that get blamed for pollution as disposal of food packaging. It becomes a decision for the consumer. One very important aspect of supply chain transparency is the impact of social media in to our the lives of our consumers. Um, Social media can definitely be used to positively reach a vast majority of the company of your target consumers, more than TV and radio can, but may also be used to negatively misrepresent a food company. Because with social media, there is little to none in terms of editing or a need for truth and accuracy. Um, Social media influencers have a multiplier effect. That products and services are at risk of being victims of fake news, or the other way around, it can gain sudden popularity. I remember I remember I remember I can't remember if it was a TikTok post or a Facebook post or whatnot, but one time there was a video that was titled how they make fake rice, and they were showing actually a process of making plastic packaging from resins. They were angling the camera was being angled in such a way that resins looked like they were rice grains, because it was white and it was granular. And what the video was doing was just to present it in reverse. So plastic sheets being manufactured in reverse. So it was like looking it seemed like it was from plastic sheets being turned into granular rice grains, when in fact it was actually a plastic sheet manufacturing. Um, I'm sure you would have come across certain social media posts like what are soft drink companies hiding from consumers, and then they would show certain snippets of a manufacturing process that can be misinterpreted by the average consumer, because not all the consumers understand how we make products, and so sometimes certain segments of videos can be angled in such a way as to misrepresent the true ways of doing things, and then cast a food manufacturer in a negative light. On the reverse side, I've seen some ordinary products being used by a social media influencer that all of a sudden just boost the sales of that product. And so that's the effect of social media. Now, as a company, if we lack the means to respond to these changing demands, especially if we don't have any means to respond to these social media videos and claims, then we stand to lose, or at least we risk losing business, especially when bad publicity about our product or the processes that we employ are made and viewed as unhealthy or anti-environment or unsafe by our target consumers. Okay, so that's for social. For economic, we're going to talk about two things, basically rising costs and increasing and diverse population. Okay, so for obviously, for rising costs, any business, as we know, is an economic entity. It's affected primarily by supply and demand, right? So rising cost of inputs is not really new to us, nor is the challenge of maintaining quality of our products and safety of our product while maintaining it at the price that makes it accessible or saleable to our consumers. So despite the rising costs, we still have the challenge of maintaining that quality and safety of the product. For example, in Canada, since COVID began, our gas prices went up by 50 to 100% increase in cost, and that impacted the cost of transporting. So from the supplier's end to transporting it to the manufacturer, from the manufacturer transporting it to the storage and distribution, and storage and distribution to the retailers and food service. So that in effect um, can also cost for the cost of our product and the saleability of our product, and so we have to balance that, or otherwise pass the increase to the consumer by increasing our prices, and that again becomes a challenge for us internally because um, you know what good is a product if it's not as saleable, and so this inspires, quote unquote, for companies to be creative and find alternative sources or of raw materials or ingredients, or even substituting for with lower cost varieties for their ingredients. And as we all know, when we do those kind of changes, either in the process or in the ingredients or the materials that we use, then that presents to us new risks, right? If you're using alternative materials or alternative ingredients, then that presents a different kind of risk than the one that we've already anticipated in our HACCP, right? And so we have to be aware of that. That if we have to do those changes, we have to make sure that we are taking into account what kind of food safety risk a change in the process or a change in the product might present. Some cutting measures to reduce the cost of quality may also affect the effectiveness of the quality and food safety programs. Sometimes there is a tendency to loosen on the specifications, or to loosen our hold on non-conforming products in order for us to avoid rejection or having to rework. And that also runs a risk of its own. Okay, next slide, please. All right. So, um, on the increasing population and the increasing diversity of the population, that is another one of those economic factors. Increasing and expanding consumer base requires more production, and thus may sacrifice dedicated times for equipment and structural maintenance, as well as cleaning and sanitation, thus presenting, your physical and biological risk to your product. Availability of affordable products may also inspire changes to existing formulations and recipes, and thus present again different food safety risk as well. Demand for authentic product. I mentioned this earlier. In Canada and the U.S., we are very diverse population. You probably have so many different cultural, different ethnicities here, that it presents a market for authentic products that would be enjoyed by people coming from different ethnic origins. And so there is a market for authentic products that would cater to those preferences. And this may inspire as well, using new authentic products that come from materials that you haven't dealt with before, right? And so again, the same thing, when we decide as food manufacturers to handle new materials or ingredients to cater to this diverse ethnic preferences, then we are going to experiment with new ingredients, new materials, and so again, with new risks that we need to be aware of. Okay, and again, with the demand for authenticity, uh, as we all know, if you're familiar with food fraud, uh, that can be an issue of food fraud that we would need to mitigate. Okay, and last one would be on the environmental factors, basically on sustainable production and waste reduction means. So sustainable production, it's I guess in general, any food business would want an efficient process. Like, I mean, who wouldn't want to have a process that uses lesser and lesser resources and wiser use of resources, while at the same time being able to fulfill the requirements of the market, right? Who wouldn't want that? Everybody wants that, right? And so we want efficient processes, um, and with consumers become more and more aware of social and economic and environmental issues, from food production to distribution, food sustainability has been more and more a key concern for customers and consumers and regulation. Food companies, in the effort to be more sustainable, food companies then have reevaluated the way products are made and handled and take measures to help protect the environment and natural resources. This, however, poses a challenge, such as in processes that have extensive use of resources. Like, take for example, if you're if you're a if you're a dairy manufacturer, say you manufacture milk, right? The process itself, especially for maintaining the highest degree of cleaning and sanitation, uses a lot of water. You lose tons and tons of water every day for just cleaning your tanks and your manufacturing system, right? So it becomes a challenge in terms of sustainability. And the challenge of sustainable production and manufacturing is complex, because if ultimately the food business has to goes on how do you call that, it has to balance its decisions for sustainability. Take for example, um, the shift from glass bottles in your soft drinks, right? So it used to be it was glass bottles that are reusable, versus before it was your one way bottles, like your PET bottles now. So in order for back then, in order for the beverage manufacturer to be sustainable and to cut down on the use of water, they had to shift from glass to PET, because the amount of chemicals and the amount of water that is used in cleaning and reusing glass bottles was in the tons and tons of water per day, and the chemicals as well. Plus the fact that they later found out that the paint on the print on the bottle was imparting lead to the environment as well. So that's again one of those key considerations for the shift from glass to PET. So it was sustainable, right? But then now we find that it presents a different environmental issue with the PET bottles only being used once and then being disposed, and most of the time you will find that these are all winding up in your bodies of water, right? You would find this on your seas, your oceans, your lakes, your rivers, and whatnot. So it I guess the point there is that sustainability really, while being the end goal of the organization, is really not that easy uh, to uh, to come by, or to get to at least. Okay, and waste reduction, use and reuse, and this one of the very important aspects of waste reduction is on food packaging. So use and reuse and disposal of plastic packaging has always been a prevailing issue, where manufacturers are often pointed to as the main contributor of plastic waste in the environment. In the 20 years of my career as an auditor, I've seen different approaches to sorry to um, uh, so I was going to go with documentation and waste as well. So plastic waste, we typically get blamed. Food manufacturers get blamed for plastic waste in the environment. The second one is also paper waste. And in the last 20 years, I've seen many organizations try to work towards a paperless system, although it seems like sometimes when I go to an audit, say, we're trying to work on paperless system, but it seems we print so much paper stuff every time we're going on an audit. But I've seen different approaches to documentation or recording necessary for managing the food business, especially in showing due diligence in managing the food safety or quality or legality compliance. Uh, it has been, of course, a common direction to reduce the use of paper and relying on electronic data, but ultimately, implementing management systems does require some paper to be generated, and so disposal of paper waste is also an issue to the organization. And the paperless system does have many benefits, especially in data retention and accessibility, as well as the as an important waste reduction strategy. However, this also presents the risk of cyber attack that may cost a food company thousands or millions even of money. There have been instances of ransomware attacks in 2022 affecting the feed and the food business, including laboratory services. I once went to a facility who had some problems shipping their products as their contracted laboratory could not generate the test results because it was being held hostage by cyber criminals. So that is a that's I guess a tricky part of um, of a paperless electronic data system in an effort to reduce paper waste issues. Another aspect of waste reduction is the having to wanting to reduce food waste. Um, if you think about uh, America, Canada, and Mexico generating 53 million tons food waste every year, you can imagine how much of that how much of that is a concern in terms of waste wanting to be reduced. Also, of that not winding up in the environment, right? So these present risk to us in terms of food safety implementation. Oftentimes, if we want to reduce food waste, then this can result into loosening the specifications so that we reject lesser products, or being loose on the hold and release program in order for us to minimize having to put into waste certain amounts of products. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, um, we either adapt or we won't survive, right? So as Deming, the proponent of the Plan to Check Act, if you're familiar with ISO, the ISO concept of Plan to Check Act, Edward Deming was the proponent of that, and he was the one who said it is not necessary to change, and survival is not mandatory. If you don't want to survive, don't change, right? But if you want to continue your business, then you want to make sure that you're adapting to these challenges and to these changes in order for you uh, to survive in the industry. Though through all the above challenges that we've talked about, still it is still necessary for us to make sure that our products are kept safe from farm to fork, and that we continue to provide products to our customers that are the quality that they expect, that are of the safety that they expect, and that it is accessible to them. So and that makes it important for us to meet the challenges of of food safety proactively. It's important for us that we have a mindset that of being prepared and not reacting. In especially with food safety hazards and risk, if you're only reacting, then it might be too late. It's important for us to be anticipating of this, because changes happen. you can't stop it because the industry and the environment where we operate also goes through constant changes. So we want to be prepared and not to react. In the previous slides that we've shown, it's not an exhaustive list of trends and challenges, and there are many that can be discussed here. So those are only a few. It's the point of what we're trying to show here is that we need more how do you call this, smart food safety. So it's important that our food safety program is adaptive. It continues to be relevant. It is proactive in terms of anticipating these changes, and somebody either a person or a team in your organization being equipped to make sense of these changes and anticipating how these changes can impact on your business. um, Suffice it to say that a smart food safety program is an organized food safety program. There has to be a method, or in terms of capturing information from the business environment, and then anticipating how that will impact the way you make the product and the way you guarantee that the product will meet its quality and its safety and legal requirements. Oftentimes we think of the GFSI standards, your BRC, SQF, and FSSC. Oftentimes we just look at these requirements as requirements for certification, but we miss the point of why these are requirements, because these are requirements for us to use as tools and instruments to guide us into making sure that the food safety program does not remain dormant or is stagnant, but it's continually changing along with the times, and making sure that the business continues to generate or churn out safe products and help us address the issues that will affect our business. I mean, in my experience, I've come across facilities that you look at their HACCP plans, and it has not changed in the last 5 years, 6 years. It's like, why are you not updating it? So we don't want to risk we don't want to risk not meeting our certification requirements. That's the kind of mindset that we don't want for facilities that are certified. We're supposed to use these standards as a means for us to continually improve and update the program. So I'm if you're ISO 22000 certified or FSSC certified, you're probably familiar with the requirements under context of the organization, and that's where this come in. So in the ISO 22000 or FSSC 22000, it requires you, as a matter of the clause requirements, to identify what are your interested parties and what are their key concerns. So that way you have an organized way of anticipating where are we going to draw information from, and then what are we going to do with the information that we gain from that, and analyze that, and how that is going to prompt us to either maintain the current food safety program or update it in certain aspects. In BRC and SQF, this come in as internal and external communication requirements. And again, this requires for you to interact with the business environment, including regulation, your customers, your consumers, suppliers, and trying to anticipate, what kind of challenges or trends that might be coming your way, is so that you can respond even before that becomes it impacts you negatively. We will not discuss all the respective clauses of the GFSI schemes here. However, I have seen that in many of our clients, those who do use their BRC, FSSC, SQF programs, those that meet the certification requirements with well-established programs, procedures, policies, they are the ones who effectively manage food safety issues that come from outside of the organization but impact the way they make their product. It's a given, obviously, that management commitment is expected for these programs to be established and implemented and maintained. And this includes providing the necessary resources, and as well as creating a food safety mindset, if you will, or like what is now popularly known as food safety culture, so that the responsibility for food safety does not lie with the QA person or the production supervisor. It becomes an overall culture of the organization, including people at the offices, the janitor, the president, the admin, the accountant and whatnot. They all have a mindset of food safety, and that's part of management commitment in all these GFSI schemes. It's important as well to have a trained person or a team who keep their ears on the ground for these for these changes, for these challenges or trends. Somebody who knows and understands how and makes sense of how these changes from outside of the organization will affect the inside of the organization. Um, I've mentioned the challenge of managing data, right, and ensuring that data and information is always accessible, but at the same time also secured from unauthorized access. And so this will be a continuing challenge for any organization as people as businesses move to paper, from paper to paperless, and using more electronic data in terms of proving their due diligence and compliance. That would be there, and I've seen that happen more often now as people have regular use of uh, electronic data streams. Um, don't forget that HACCP has always been risk based. It's ironic that these days they have to emphasize risk based HACCP when in fact from the beginning HACCP has always been a risk based management tool, and so it's not supposed to be something that is written in stone. It has to be changing and improving as time goes on. It has to continually improve in anticipating food safety hazards. Compared with traditional HACCP, we used to just think about physical, chemical, biological hazards, and then it became physical, chemical, biological, and radiological hazards. And now we have to think about physical, chemical, biological hazards, and now we incorporate biosecurity hazards, fraud hazards, and sabotage or vandalism or food defense hazards into the mix of risk identification and mitigation. In the end, a robust program for food defense, supply chain management, as well as fraud prevention have become increasingly important. And without this set of programs or protocols, it would be difficult to ensure your food safety program remains valid and up to date, and to meet the challenges of this changing times. That's it for me. Back to you, Scott.
Great. Thank you, Caleb. Appreciate your in-depth knowledge and expertise in these areas. So hopefully you're feeling better. We noticed you're starting to come down with a little cold up there. So try to stay warm up in Canada, would you please? So up on the screen right now, we have all of our contact information for both Caleb and myself, as well as some of our general email addresses and websites. We do have a bunch of questions. We'll try to get through a few of them. If we do go a few minutes over, we'll apologize in advance, but we want to try to answer a couple if we can. Let's see. Let's try. Here's one for you, Caleb. How will a failure to anticipate all these changes affect our certification? Can the result Can this result to a major or critical issues in the food safety program?
Right. Last week we were talking with people from SQF, and they were presenting the top critical and top major and minor issues, and I noticed that well, the first five, I think the first five of the critical issues were related to food safety plan, and I suspect it was a lack of updating, or a lack of implementation kind of deal. um, it if we fail to anticipate, these issues, and making sense of how that's going to affect the how we guarantee our product safety, it can lead to a critical non-confer. If you miss a relevant hazard, in terms of not being able to identify it and then control it, then it can be, if it's relevant to your product, then that can spell a critical, or at least a major nonconformity, in your system. And hopefully it can just be an issue of documentation, but in reality there is actual controls. But sometimes the failure to anticipate it, leads to a lack of control over that hazard, and that definitely can be a risk of to consumers' health, and so lead to a critical or a major issue in your food safety system.
And nobody wants to get a critical or a major, do they?
Nobody.
Another couple of questions. Let me see if I can get a couple here. Somebody was asking about cell-based meat. Is this healthy to eat?
Oh, yeah. I came across that cell-based meat, right? And this is one of those things in response to environmental factors of reducing carbon footprint. They say, like, it's if we're talking about protein sources, it's much more cost efficient and much more environmentally friendly to have plant-based meat rather than animal-based meat. And so they're developing cell-based meat, which is basically growing your own meat, from animal cells. I must say I don't have so much familiarity with it in terms of it as a process. I know it's being developed. I know there are companies that have invested in it as being the future of meat consumption. It's more healthier, more environmentally friendly. Whether that is safe or not, that's something that we have yet to see, because we don't know exactly how the process is done. Right? Like with any hazard, you look at the process first and then try to anticipate where the hazards are gonna come from. Is it the cell itself that's being used to grow it, or that where the hazards might come from, or is it the environment? Is it the equipment? Is it the technology that's being used to generate that cell-based meat? But it's very interesting. I'm really looking forward to see how that's gonna go. It's still, I guess, too early to say whether it's safe or not. That's my opinion. And just because, like I said, I'm not totally familiar with the technology that they're using that product.
Oh,
But
technology's changing. Yeah, technology's changing quick, and we're all trying to play catch up these days, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Caleb, I don't want to cut it too short, but we have used up our allotted time, so maybe we'll catch it up on the next one. I hope everybody enjoyed the session. We will have it available up on the website, as well as emails to everybody that did attend. Please take a look at it. If you have any questions, or if you want to actually hear about a certain topic, please send either Caleb or myself an email. You've got our email addresses there. We'd love to be able to answer any of the questions, maybe come up with a new topic for y'all. And let's make everybody happy and eat healthy. Y'all have a great day. We're all out of here. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. See you next time.
Bye-bye.